आय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिन इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय।
जय। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। श्रीमद् भगवत गीता की जय। So welcome everyone to our Gita class. We know you can record. Okay. So last time we did chapter 2, verse 1 to verse 5. And then we took a break and we did the introduction. Many new people have joined us today. So today we are starting from chapter 2, verse 6. So don't worry, the ones who've joined later. Bhagavad Gita is so resilient that each purport or each verse is like a summary of the previous verses. And along the way, if you have any doubts or questions, we will take them at the end of the session. So kindly make note of your questions as and when they arise during the session, and we'll try to answer them towards the end. So I'll request, without wasting any more time, I'll request Hema to read verse 6.
हरे कृष्ण। न चैतद्विद्मः कतरन्नो गरीयो यद्वा जयेम यदि वानो जयेयुः यानेव हत्वा न जिजीविषाम ते अवस्थिताः प्रमुखे धार्तराष्ट्राः। Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to leave. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield.
Yeah. So we saw in the chapter, first chapter, that the war is about to start and Arjun has developed cold feet. He has many doubts creeping up, and finally he tells Krishna, he puts his Gandiv down and he tells Krishna that he's not able to pick up his Gandiv against his own family members. So this verse, जिनके पास भी गीता है, they can open, and we come to the word-to-word meaning. Na chaitad, which means not also this with maha do we know. Katarat, which naha for us, gariha better, yat whether jayema we may conquer. So what he's saying is, yad jayema, yad whether jayema we may conquer, yadi va naha jayeyuhu, or they conquer us. Whether we conquer them or they conquer us. Arjun is thoroughly confused at this point in time in the battlefield. He has become so confused that he's saying whether they conquer me, I'm losing, or whether I conquer them, I'm losing. So either ways, it's a lose-lose situation for me. Why do I need to fight? How can I fight? Why should I fight? You can imagine his state of mind. The reasons that he's giving here is those certainly who are yan eva hatva na jiji vinashaha. What is jiji vishamaha? We would want to live. So certainly by killing them, never will we want to live. While all of them are situated in the front, the sons of Dhritarashtra. So he's saying he is actually thoroughly confused, but at the same time, Arjun is showing um, very high intelligence here. Now, that may seem like a paradox, but you will come to know why it is not slowly as we read this. These verses are very, very important, these 4 verses, so please pay attention. So Arjun is highly enlightened and he has complete control over his mind and senses to think of so many after effects of war. It's not normal or ordinary for a person to think about so much in advance about the after effects of the war. So he is displaying actually a very highly enlightened state of mind where he's analyzing what's going to happen after the war. And then he's coming to this conclusion that there is no happiness for me, whether I win this or whether they win this. Either ways, one side is going to get killed. So if I win, I will have no family left to share my victory with. So there is no happiness in this win. And if they win, all of us are going to be killed. Or at best, we will not have a kingdom. So that also is not going to give us any happiness, because we will have to subsist ourselves by begging. So in fact, he is willing to beg despite being a prince. You can see his level of detachment. Arjun, being a prince born in a royal household, being a kshatriya, it's very difficult for a kshatriya to beg for alms, because kshatriyas, it's in their blood to rule, to lead the community, to lead the people, to lead the subjects. And for them to live or subsist by begging is very, very difficult. And yet he is agreeing voluntarily to take it up. He says that I am willing to beg, but I do not want to fight. So such a person who is so detached, who is so virtuous, and who is so devoted, so committed to the humanity at large, not only to his immediate family or his immediate relatives, but to the entire humanity at large. Such a person is fit to gain knowledge or to receive knowledge, and such a person is fit for liberation. So why do we say this? Because intelligence is to know what to do when you don't know what to do. Think about it. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu says very nicely, he explains that real intelligence is to know what to do when you don't know what to do. Each one of us has had this occasion in our life when we are thoroughly confused, we are either in anxiety or in depression, and we don't know which way to go. This way or that way or any other way, all of them do not seem to be giving us a suitable result. And so we are thoroughly confused. And in that situation, what does an intelligent man do? When he's thoroughly confused what to choose and what not to choose, what does he do? He knows what to do. And what is that? Any guesses?
Refer Bhagavad Gita.
Sorry?
Refer Bhagavad Gita.
Yes. You surrender to the Lord. When you are confused, you don't know what to do, you take the shelter of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. You take the shelter of the Supreme Lord to give you the guidance through his bona fide representative, which is either the spiritual master or a saintly person, or the Shastra. So this is an indication of an intelligent person. When he is thoroughly confused, he knows where to go and where not to go. And such a person surely will get the right advice and the right counsel, and he will spring back out of that situation victorious. So there is no chance for such a person to fail, because he will be taking advice from the perfect source, from a bona fide source, from a parampara. So here in the purport, Prabhupada writes that Arjun did not know whether he should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of a Kshatriya, or whether he should just live by begging, detach himself and live by begging. Because if he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of survival. Nor was there any certainty of victory. So it would be, all these considerations by Arjun definitely proved that not only was he a great devotee, but he was also highly enlightened. These are the qualities of any person to receive knowledge, the right knowledge, Rajavidya, the supreme knowledge, not just any knowledge, because there is plenty of knowledge available, plenty of information available in the market today. That's not what we are referring to here. We are referring to Rajavidya, the king of all knowledge. And such a person, an enlightened or intelligent person, deserves to receive such knowledge. Because if he has agreed to even live by his senses, you can live by begging, you can see that as a sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous, as these qualities combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Sri Krishna, who is his spiritual master, indicate. So it is concluded that Arjun was quite fit for liberation, because unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And if you do not have knowledge and you do not have devotion, then definitely there is no chance of liberation. So Arjun was competent in all the spheres, in all aspects and respects, over and above his enormous attributes of his material relationships. What were his material attributes? Compassion, absence of envy, having compassion even for his enemies, worrying about the women, their future, worrying about the children, their future, worrying about the subjects. All these are his bodily attachments. So surely he had a very high level of compassion for these living entities. This was on the material platform, but even on the spiritual platform, he was very enlightened, because he was detached to his kingdom at a young age. For a person to be born in the princely order and yet voluntarily saying that I'd rather beg, and he's saying that genuinely, than kill my cousins who have tried to kill us all their lives. So he definitely showed a very high level of enlightenment, and at the same time humility and submissiveness. So he is the right person to receive Rajavidya. Next verse.
कार्पण्यदोषोपहतः स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेतः यच्छ्रेयस्यान्न निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम्. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Yeah. So the first word itself of the verse speaks volumes. Kripanya. Kripanya, no, sorry, Karpanya. Karpanya means miserliness, conjuicy. But this verse will teach us the real meaning of what a miser is. What is miserliness? We all have some idea of who a miser is, who a conjuice is. But let's understand it from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. So, Karpanya, dosha, by the weakness, apahat, being afflicted, svabhavaha, characteristics. So, by nature's own way, the complete system of material activities is a source of perplexity for everyone. This world is described as a Mahadavagni. There is a forest fire. How does a forest fire start? Nobody knows. Does it have a reason? No. Does anybody want it? No. Does everybody get it? Yes. So this is the nature of the material world. Nobody plans on receiving misery or receiving catastrophe. Yet it visits us from time to time. And there's nothing we can do about it. So we are living in the blazing forest fire of material life. In every step there is perplexity, and therefore it behooves one to approach a bona fide spiritual master who can give one proper guidance for executing the purpose of life. So what does an intelligent man do when he knows that difficulties are going to visit him, regardless of whether he wants them or no? All Vedic literature known to man points us to one single pointed direction. Seek the shelter of a real bona fide guru who is coming from a parampara, who is coming with the real knowledge as they have received it from their gurus and their acharyas to help us solve the problems of life. And not only that, the Vedas also help us understand the science of the solutions. So whatever solutions are coming from the Shastra, from the Guru, they help us understand what is the science, what is the logic, what is the practicality behind those solutions. It's not blind faith, or it's not dogma, or it's not some superstition that is expected of us to just follow them blindly. So the Vedas help us understand the science behind the solutions that the spiritual master gives us based on the Shastra. So if you read the purport from the second paragraph. Who is the man in material perplexities? It is he who does not understand the problems of life. We all have problems in life, yes. But an intelligent man looks at the main problem of life. The other problems are subsets of the main problems. So when you solve the main big problem, automatically the subsets of those problems get solved. So an intelligent thing to do would be to make a solution to the foundation of problems, the root cause of all problems. And automatically the other small problems related to that get sorted. So it is he who does not understand the problems of life. In the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad 3.8.10, it says the perplexed man is described as Yova etad aksharam gagi abhidhit vasmai lokat praiti sa kripanaha. Again, they're mentioning the word miserly. So what is the real definition of a miser? A person who underutilizes his intelligence. As human beings, we are far more intelligent than all other living entities known to man. animals, beasts, insects, aquatics, airborne. Out of all the 84 lakh species, the most intelligent and the topmost on the pyramid is a human being. And if the human being utilizes all his intelligence only to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, which the animal kingdom is also doing, he is a miser. He's underutilizing his intelligence. He's underutilizing his capacity. He's underutilizing his gift. It's like my children tell me, Mom, this iPhone latest is a waste on you. You are underutilizing it. You're not using all its features. You're just using it for a simple, most simple application like WhatsApp and nothing more. You can do so much more with it. And so it is with human life. There is so much more that you can do with your human life. You can get out of this forest fire of material life in this life itself easily, without doing austerity or without going to the jungles or caves or retiring from family life or retiring from social life. While staying in the social life, in the social circle, in the middle of your family life, you have a great opportunity to make a solution to the problem of birth and death, old age and disease, and the impermanence of life. And if we do not do that, and we use this life just to eat better, sleep better, mate better, and defend ourselves better, then we are kripanas. This is the verdict of Shastra. So it's mentioned in the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad. He is a miserly man who does not solve the problems of life as a human, and who thus quits this world like cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. So there is a big onus on us. There is a very famous saying in the material world, in the corporate world, there are no free lunches. We've all heard of that. Well, that applies to all of us. It doesn't just apply to the money-making world or to the corporate world. This human life is not a free lunch given to us to just use it the way we want and finish it. We have a very big responsibility when we've got this body, and that to a human form of body. We have a great responsibility to understand why the body has been given to us. What are we supposed to do with it? And then we are supposed to execute that, use this body for that purpose. Otherwise, we are underutilizing it. Of course, we are a kripana, we are a miser. And by not living to our full potential, we are doing a great disservice to this opportunity, because this opportunity is not common. It's not something that you will get again and again. It's not like the rising and the setting sun. Aaj nahi kiya to kal sun, suraj phir ugega, phir kar lenge. It's not so. You may or may not get the human body again. It's not a free lunch. So we have a big responsibility on how to use it. And it is our responsibility to find out how to use it and who can help us understand how to use it. So finding a spiritual master is the biggest service that we can do for ourselves, who can guide us get out of this forest fire. Because the Bhagavad Gita is a book, yes, but if you read it, at best you may get some intellectual study out of it. But a guru, a bona fide spiritual master, will decode these verses and explain the meaning behind them, the crux behind them. That's how important and how indispensable a spiritual master is to our life, to the success of our life, and to the solution to our problems. Just as you need a qualified teacher, even though there are books of engineering and medicine freely available in the market. I think you get it max for 300 rupees, maybe 400 rupees. You can easily buy a book on medicine or engineering. Why then can't you become an engineer sitting at home? You still need a teacher, a qualified teacher who's been there, done that, understands the subject well, is bona fide, certified by a higher institution. You will seek the company of such a teacher to yourself learn medicine. Exactly the same principle. Why shouldn't that apply to spiritual life? Why is the spiritual life taken so casually and so optionally? It's not an option, actually. It's a compulsory part of our life. And a bona fide spiritual master is one who can help you understand the Bhagavad Gita in the right light without misinterpretation, because there are so many cheaters who misinterpret the message of the Bhagavad Gita. They twist it and they interpret it in their own way. Hence, you need a bona fide spiritual master from the Parampara who brings the message as it is, as Krishna told Arjun, without giving their own personal interpretation to it and without changing the meaning or the subject matter as intended by the author. Okay. So the human form of life is a most valuable asset for the living entity who can utilize it for solving the problems of life. On the other hand, so who is the opposite of a miser? Shastra says the opposite of a miser is a Brahman. And the real definition of a Brahman is given. On the other hand, there is the Brahman, or he who is intelligent enough to utilize this body to solve all the problems of life. Ya etad aksharam gargi vidit vasmai lokat praiti sa brahmanaha. So, a miser lives for short-term gains. Practically put, these are the indications of a miser. Whereas a Brahman lives for long-term benefits. We've done this concept in our previous classes, Shreyas and Preyas. Preyas means I did something and give me my result. I want to see the result now. Show me God now. Now. I want to see him. If you show him now, I'll believe in him. Otherwise, no. And what is Shreyas? Long term. You develop the eyes to see him. You develop the character to meet him. You develop the qualities, the attributes to see and meet God. And then in the long term, you will be able to see him. That's a Brahman. That's an intelligent man. So nowhere are they mentioning that a Brahmin is by birth. Of course, a son born in a Brahmin's house can have Brahminical qualities and may continue the lineage. But he has to have those qualities of a Brahmin. So a Brahmin works for Shreyas. Of course, Shreyas is more intelligent, a better goal, a higher goal, and a more practical goal, whereas a miser lives for short-term goals. Needless to say, you can easily make out who is happier out of the two and who is successful out of the two. So without the guidance of a spiritual master, the Bhagavad Gita will remain theoretical. But when you hear it from a spiritual master, it becomes practical. And you can start applying it in your life and start seeing the results. So the Kripanas or miserly persons waste their time in being overly affectionate for family, society, country, etc. in the material conception of life. This is a very loaded statement. Affection for family, we feel we are doing, the goal of our life is just to take care of our family members, our children, the elders in our family, and it's a successful life. Society, we do social work thinking that's the highest form of work that we can do, and we are very attached to that, helping the needy. And then country, nationalism, feeling great pride or love for one's country, and even giving up our life for the country. But the Shastra says all three are on the material platform. We still haven't even, so all three are misers. That doesn't mean these don't have to be done. These have to be done, but you don't stop there. You go beyond, because you're a human being. You're not an animal. You haven't yet reached the goal of your life. This is just basic courtesy. This is just being a gentleman or a gentlewoman, to be nice and affectionate to your surroundings, to the people around you. There is no big deal about it. You're supposed to be behaving at a high level of etiquette. But that's not the goal of life alone. There's no reason to stop there. One is often attached to family life, wife, children, and other members on the basis of skin disease. Shastra is very strong. They say that our attachment to them is no more than skin disease. And you can actually see this practically. Death changes the equation completely. When a parent dies, the affection that they feel for their children is severed. When that parent is reborn again, he may see that child and feel nothing for him. So it is a skin disease. As long as you are alive, you feel affection for these people around you, husband, wife, mother, father, relatives. But the moment you die, it erases your memory. You don't feel anything for these people anymore. Although they are there, they're still there. So affection for our blood relatives is just a skin disease. Why would you stop there? Only Kripanas or misers will stop there. The Kripana thinks that he is able to protect his family members from death. Or the Kripana thinks that his family or his society or his country can save him from the verge of death. But such family attachment can be found even in the lower animals who take care of their children. We all have seen this. We have seen how the parrots, the pigeons, how they take care of their loved ones. How dogs, once the female dog lays a litter of puppies, you should see how she cares for them by staying hungry herself. Being intelligent, Arjun could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Now comes intelligence. That yes, you acknowledge that you are attached to these people. That doesn't mean that you will disown them and you will stop caring for them. You will continue to do that. But Arjun could see that his misery right now is because he's limiting himself just to his attachment. And that attachment is actually troubling him to such an extent that even despite being a Kshatriya, he's unable to fight. And on a battlefield, he has developed goosebumps. We saw how he was feeling on the battlefield. Okay, I was looking for those Sanskrit words. Being intelligent, Arjun could understand that his affection for family members and his wish to protect them from death were the causes of his perplexities. Although he could understand that his duty to fight was awaiting him, still on account of miserly weakness, he could not discharge his duties. So this is what attachment can do to us. It can stop us from performing our higher duty. And therefore it's called a skin disease. He is therefore asking Lord Krishna, the Supreme Spiritual Master, he is the Chaitya Guru in our heart, to make a definite solution. Now this is intelligence. That when you, first of all, you recognize that you have the skin disease. You're a miser if you don't even recognize that you have this skin disease. And once you recognize it, then you go to the spiritual master to help you come out of it. Because if you are in the well, you need someone outside the well to pull you out. You can't take help from the other people who are already in the well with you, namely your family members, your loved ones, your near and dear ones. They can't take you out of the well because they are themselves in the well with you. You need a person outside the well to throw you a rope down and pull you out, and that is the spiritual master. And that is why Arjun is called enlightened, because he could see that he is in this precarious, dangerous position. He could analyze it, and he's seeking help. What does he do? He offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. Up till now, Krishna was his friend, his sakha. And he says, as your friend, I'm not gaining any. And Krishna also was not offering him any help. He was observing him. He was waiting for him to realize his position. and come to him and ask for help. Then he would give his help. Because nobody accepts free advice, isn't it? We all love to give free advice. Do we like receiving free advice? No. So advice has to be asked. It has to be sought. And there is a way that the Shastra says how advice has to be taken. Pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. This is the way to ask for advice. Pranipatena means surrender. Surrender to Krishna through a bona fide spiritual master. Pariprashnena. Then, after you have surrendered to him, which means you acknowledge that you are in a dungeon, you are in a well, and then you look for a spiritual master. You ask Krishna to help you, get you out of the situation, to guide you, to give you what is the right answer, which means you're looking at Shastra for solutions. You're not looking at other people for solutions. Pariprashnena, you inquire from him humbly. So submissive and humble, these are the two qualities that anybody will be pleased by, these two qualities, and will willingly help you. Aggressiveness and an attitude will not get you help or the right answer, or you will not attract the right people towards you to give you help. And last is sevaya, by serving them. So pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. By these three methods in sequence, you seek out Krishna and his help through the spiritual master. You inquire humbly from him and you offer service. You serve them, you please them. And then you wait for the help to arrive, the guidance to arrive, the knowledge to arrive. And it does without fail. So he offers himself to Krishna as a disciple. That's what Arjun says. He says, now I'm not looking at you as a friend. Krishna, please take the position of my spiritual master. I am now coming to you as a disciple, not as your friend. And I'm thoroughly, completely confused. I'm bewildered which path to take, which path to leave, because all the paths to me seem that they are taking me towards the dungeon. There is defeat at the end of every path. And I need clarity. I'm thoroughly confused. So kindly, I surrender unto you. Tell me what to do. He wants to stop friendly talks. Talks between the master and the disciple are serious. And now Arjun wants to talk very seriously before the recognized spiritual master. Krishna is therefore the original spiritual master of the science of Bhagavad Gita. And Arjun is the first disciple for understanding the Gita. How Arjun understands the Bhagavad Gita is stated in the Gita itself. And yet, the foolish mundane scholars explain that one need not submit to Krishna as a person, but to the unborn within Krishna. These are some of the commentaries or translations of the Bhagavad Gita that you will find in the market. This verse, which is very straightforward as Krishna telling Arjun, please give me a glass of water. And a mundane scholar who is not a devotee of Krishna will take this verse and translate it as, no, actually he's not asking for water. He's just asking for anything liquid. So you can give him anything. You can give him tea, you can give him coffee. So this is a misinterpretation of the message. If Krishna is saying, give me water, water is what you give him. You don't interpret that water as the unborn within Krishna. Hence, it is very important to read a bona fide or an authoritative version of translation of the Bhagavad Gita. The verse may be the same. The verse doesn't change, but the translation does. And that can be the make and break on how much it will actually help you. Mundane scholars misinterpret this verse as Krishna, they disregard, although everybody knows that Gita is Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad means God, Gita means song. Song of God, song of the Lord. And everybody knows that it is Sri Krishna, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Yet they do not acknowledge the person Krishna. They say that there is no such person as Krishna. It's just the unborn within you. It's just you. It's just energy. But it's not Krishna. They do not acknowledge the person Krishna. There is no difference between Krishna's within and without. Krishna is absolute. The internal of Krishna and the external of Krishna is the same. So the interpretation to say that the unborn within Krishna is completely wrong and baseless, which means that the unborn inside Krishna is the real person, but the Krishna from outside is not the real person. That's a contradiction in itself. What is inside Krishna is exactly what is outside Krishna. In fact, he says that in the Gita itself, Janma karma chame divyam. All my activities are divya. They are not materialistic. Evam yoveti tattvataha. The wise who understand this tattva, tyaktva deham punar janma nayeti. They do not get a rebirth again in this life. They get liberated and they get a permanent solution to the forest fire of this material world. So one who has no sense of this understanding is the greatest fool in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita. So Guru, Sadhu and Shastra are crucial to our spiritual life. Next verse.
Sure. Hare Krishna. Nahi prapashami mama apanudyat yachokamucho shanamendriyanam avapya bhuma vasampatnamuddam rajyam suranam apichadhipatyam. I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to disciple it even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven.
Yeah. So if you see this verse, na, do not, he, certainly, prapashyami, I see. So certainly I don't see. My, mama, my, apanudyat, can drive away. Shokam, lamentation. So actually it is yachokam. Cha and cha are mixed together. So it is actually chokam. But the real word is shokam. So it's a nice pun because English, there is a word named choke in English and the Sanskrit word is shok. Zyada farak nahi hai dono mein, shokam, chokam. Shok is actually choking and we are all choking with difficulties in our life. So shokam or chokam, you can say whatever you like, is lamentation. Rudan, vedana. Uchchosanam, drying up. Indriyanam, of the senses. Avapya, achieving. Bhumau, on the earth. So Indriyanam, uchchoshanam, drying up of the senses. This is the condition of Arjuna. Physically, he's feeling ill, physically also. But why is he physically feeling ill? We saw those verses in the first chapter that describes what he was feeling physically. Does anybody remember? What were his symptoms, what he was feeling while on the chariot?
His limbs were quivering.
Yes, कांप रहे थे थर-थर. इतने बड़े योद्धा, 7 feet tall and undefeatable.
अपना धनुष
गला सूख रहा था.
गला सूख
उन्होंने
रहा
अपना
था.
गांडीव भी फेंक दिया था जी.
गांडीव उनसे उठाया नहीं जा रहा था, उसका भार नहीं उठाया जा रहा था. Which he never placed it on the ground. We did that story.
His
That
mouth
he was ready to kill his own brother Yudhishthir. rather than put his Gandiv down on the floor. और अब उनसे वो गांडीव उठाया नहीं जा रहा, कांप रहे हैं, गला सूख रहा है, and sweat, perspiration on the whole body, बाल बिखर गए, and he is now unable to stand. His legs could not take the weight of his body. And what does he do finally? कांपते हुए बैठ जाते हैं. He sits down and अपना हाथ, सिर दोनों हाथों में पकड़ लेते हैं. It's unimaginable for a Yoddha like Arjun to feel like this, physically sick. But the main point, what's important to see here is, why is he physically sick? The main reason is not because of the weather. You know, it was 35 degrees, or it was really hot. That was not the reason. The reason
Because
was
उनके
because
सामने
he was,
उनके सारे गुरु और उनके पितामह सब बड़े बड़े घर के जो लोग थे वो खड़े थे, इसलिए वो
he
थोड़ा
was,
उनको लगा था कि इनका
he was
वर्क कर.
he was actually emotionally sick.
हाँ,
So your emotions is what actually causes your physical condition. So your emotional condition is the main cause for your physical condition. You can see that even in the pandemic right now. The unanimous decision across all the countries is, the reports that are coming say that those patients who panic are the ones who are most difficult to recover from the ICU. So those who mentally give up are the most difficult to rescue and save, compared to those who are mentally strong. So if you look at this a three-pronged way, a person has spiritual needs and a person has material needs. And this is emotional needs. So there are spiritual needs and there are material needs, and then there are emotional needs. When you connect your emotional needs to the spiritual needs, you go upwards. And when you connect your emotional needs to your material needs, you go downwards. So emotional needs is what you need to tackle. This is what we can learn from this condition right now of Arjun. That it was Arjun's emotional state that caused him to do all this, not anything external. He had not been hit by a single arrow as of now. Yet he was behaving like he has been injured. Why? Because his heart had been injured. His mind, his senses had been injured. Emotionally, he had been injured. So physically also, he was displaying all symptoms of being injured. So it is very important that all our emotional needs are connected to the spiritual goals or the spiritual feelings. Then physical solutions automatically get solved. But physical solutions can never solve the emotional conflicts. The opposite is not true. You may try to do, you can see that if that was the case, then technological advancement would have brought world peace by now. These are physical solutions, technological solutions, but they are just making technology better, things better, not human beings better. Why? Because human beings are not things. They are emotional beings. So to satisfy a human being, you need to satisfy his emotions. Therefore, the NGOs of the world are failing miserably. You will go to any NGO and they will say that they need more people, they need more NGOs to function, because as much as they are trying to feed people and educate people and give them affordable housing, give them affordable food, yet the problems don't seem to finish. They are multiplying more and more. But it's an intelligent man who will notice that the developed countries who have no problems of food, water, shelter, these people are also not happy. So if the physical needs are met, And if they alone could have given happiness to people, then all the rich people would have been the happiest people, the most peaceful, content, and satisfied people. But we see that even among the rich, there is equal number of cases of depression or suicide. Although they have money, they have no need to earn, they have no need to go to work a single day because they have enough money, they have fame, they have recognition, and yet they are miserable. So the physical needs cannot satisfy. On the contrary, even if you go to Vedic India, just 500 years back, that's not very late. People had very simple housing. There was village life. There were fewer cities. 90%, everybody were dependent on agriculture for their livelihood. And everybody was happy and more content compared to what people are today. Our housing, our lifestyle may be technically more advanced than our predecessors, but our mental condition is worse than our predecessors today. Those people were content. They didn't work after sunset. They didn't need to. They didn't have electricity. They lived by the oil lamp. And they were much more emotionally strong, intellectually advanced, and more happier people. There was compared, so technology, if that was the solution to happiness, then this world would have been a much more happier one. Whereas time and again I hear from the previous generation कि हमारा ज़माना अच्छा था. Look at you, आपके तो बच्चों को भी अब stress होने लगा है. हमारे ज़माने में तो बच्चे were carefree. We didn't have this stress. Children used to love their vacations, their school life, everything. And look at the condition of our children today. Why? Why? If we have so much of 4G, 5G, laptops, iPads, I this, I that, they should have been better, happier. But I see children visiting psychiatrists now, visiting counselors now, because emotionally they are starving. That's because spiritually we are all starving. And the leaders of the world are becoming duller and duller because they're not able to understand how to fix this problem, and they're looking in the wrong direction. Spirituality is being considered the enemy, the demon. Let's do away with dharam, let's do away with spiritual education, then there will be world peace. And let's bring in more and more of technological advancement, then there will be world peace. Unless the heart of a person is fixed, he will continue to behave at a lower level. Unless his heart is fixed, he will not become a better person. You may give him as many facilities as you want. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a story of Chitraketu. Chitraketu was a very powerful king. He had everything going for him. Yet he was unhappy because he didn't have a son. He didn't have children. And despite having all the riches of such a person, if they are offering him garlands every day of the best flowers available on planet Earth and giving him all the respect and adoration, yet that was not giving him happiness because his need at that time was that of a son. So that garland was, to him, appeared like snakes around his neck because emotionally his need was something else, which this physical persona of being a king and receiving all the physical benefits of a king was not able to satisfy. So that's how important it is to satisfy our emotional selves. And that satisfaction will only come through Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, through the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, as it is. So similarly, Arjun was tormented emotionally, and the physical act of fighting was not pacifying his heart. He didn't have a reason to fight. He wanted that goal, that understanding, that emotional will and determination or utsah to fight. And that's why he was incapable of fighting. So, although Arjun was putting forward so many arguments based on knowledge of the principles of religion and moral codes, it appears that he was unable to solve his real problem without the help of a spiritual master, Lord Sri Krishna. He could understand that his so-called knowledge was useless in driving away his problems, which were drying up his whole existence. And it was impossible for him to solve such perplexities without the help of a spiritual master like Lord Krishna. Academic knowledge, scholarship, high position are all useless in solving the problems of life. Help can be given only by a spiritual master like Krishna. Therefore, the conclusion is that a spiritual master who is 100% Krishna conscious is the bona fide spiritual master, because he can solve the problems of life, the real problems of life. Lord Chaitanya said that one who is a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, regardless of his social position, is the real spiritual master. Now here we are getting the definition of a spiritual master. Kiba vipra kiba nyasi, shudra kene naya, yei Krishna tattva veta, sei guru haya. It does not matter whether a person is a vipra, a learned scholar in Vedic wisdom, or he is born in a lower family, or he is in the renounced order of life, which means a sannyasi. If he is a master in the science of Krishna, he is the perfect and bona fide spiritual master. The only qualification that a spiritual master needs to have is that he has to be completely, entirely Krishna conscious, surrendered to Krishna by actions, words, and deeds, through his mind, through his emotion. So, without being a master in the science of Krishna consciousness, no one is a bona fide spiritual master. It is also said in the Vedic literature, Sat karma nipono vipro, mantra tantra visharadaha, avaishnava gurur nashyad, vaishnava swapacho guruhu. A scholarly Brahmin, expert in all subjects of Vedic knowledge, is unfit to become a spiritual master without being a Vaishnav or expert in the science of Krishna consciousness. But a person born in a family of a lower caste can become a spiritual master if he is a Vaishnav or if he is Krishna conscious. This is from the Padma Purana. So the problems of material existence like birth, old age, disease, and death cannot be counteracted by wealth or by economic development. In many parts of the world, there are states which are replete with all facilities of life, full of wealth. Yet the problems of material existence are still there. They are seeking peace in different ways, but they can achieve real happiness only if they consult Krishna or the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which constitute the science of Krishna, through the bona fide representative of Krishna, the man in Krishna consciousness. He who is a devotee of Krishna can understand and translate and explain the words of Krishna. Just a mundane scholar or a materialistic scholar who doesn't have faith in Krishna is not the right person to translate the Bhagavad Gita, because he will only look at it from an academic point of view. He will miss the emotions. He will just do a technical job. If economic development and material comforts could drive away one's lamentations for family, social, national, or international, then Arjun would not have said that even an unrivaled kingdom on earth or supremacy like that of the demigods in the heavenly planets would be unable to drive away his lamentations. Arjun said, I don't even want the heavenly planets. मुझे ये युद्ध जीतकर स्वर्ग भी नहीं जाना है, मुझे स्वर्ग में भी peace nahi milega. Look at his level of consciousness. He is rejecting Swarglok also. He sought therefore refuge in Krishna consciousness, and that is the right path for peace and harmony. Economic development or supremacy over the world can be finished at any moment by the cataclysms of material nature. At any point in time, an earthquake can come and destroy a country in seconds. What economic development will we rely on? This can finish by Mother Nature, can finish it. Look at what COVID has done. World economies have collapsed. That took centuries to build. A small microscopic germ that you have to use a microscope to see it, has created such havoc in the world. This is how temporary everything material is. This is how temporary even the security of money is. Money can't give you that security, or economic development cannot bring peace. One has to surrender to the Supreme Lord and agree to follow his instructions. Then there will be a change. That you agree to follow what he is saying. Even elevation into a higher planetary situation, as men are now seeking on the moon planet, can also be finished in one stroke. All our space programs, one satellite crashes and millions of dollars are washed off. And the whole project that took years and years get destroyed. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this. Krishne punye marta lokam vishanti. When the results of pious activities are finished, what happens? Swarglok mein do you think that we can stay in Swarglok with Indra and the Apsaras forever? Till eternity? No. जितना बैंक बैलेंस होता है उतने दिन ही आप रिजॉर्ट में रहते हो ना, जितने दिनों का आपने पैकेज लिया है, 3 nights 4 days, 5 nights 6 days, you can stay only for those many nights. Your money finishes, you are kicked out. Thank you, sir. Thank you, madam. The next guest is waiting. Kindly vacate the room before 12 o'clock. Isn't it? That's exactly how the material world works. Swarglok में भी जितने दिन आपने पुण्य कर्म आपके fixed deposit bank account में है, you are allowed to stay there, and then you are kicked out of there and thrown back to this world. So when the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. Many politicians of the world have fallen down in that way. Such downfalls only constitute more causes for lamentation. और दुख होता है. स्वर्ग एक बार देख लो, उसके बाद तो यहाँ आके और भी ज्यादा दुख होगा. उससे तो पहले ही अच्छे थे यहाँ पे, जब तक स्वर्ग देखा नहीं था. Isn't it? Therefore, if we want to curb lamentation for good, lamentation मतलब विलाप, रोना, cribbing for what we don't have. If we want to curb this for good, which means permanently, then we have to take shelter of Krishna. As Arjun is seeking to do, we have to adopt the mood of Arjun. This is what Arjun is teaching us by his conduct. So Arjun asked Krishna to solve his problems definitely, permanently, completely. And that is the way to Krishna consciousness. And the good news is, it's easy. It's not tough. It does not belong to only the intelligent people, only the middle class, upper middle class, rich people. A simple villager who is unpad, who has never read a book in his life, can also practice Krishna consciousness. That is the beauty of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's arrival. He did away with the middlemen who were, it was important to go through the middlemen till Dwapar Yuga to reach Krishna. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and opened the floodgates to Krishna's land. And he said, all are welcome. No rules apply. Anyone, only one rule applies. Surrender. Surrender with devotion. Agree to abide by the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita. And it is free for all. I think we'll stop here. So, I welcome all everybody who found time to come to hear the Srimad Bhagavad Gita by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. And if you have any questions, you may ask now. I think we have about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. 12 minutes, and 10-12 minutes, and we can take some questions. We close at 5:30. So one at a time, if there is anything, or if there is any realization of what you heard today, if you just want to share what you felt, what you understood, what is your takeaway, that is also welcome. So I can see Kushal, Mittal, Tina. I think they are here for the first time.
Yeah, hello everyone.
Hello.
Kushal Mittal is my mother. I'm Anuradha.
Okay, is your mother here?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
on her phone. I'm on my phone.
No, yeah,
So I
sure.
just have one question.
Can we see you, Anuradha, if you want to?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I just have one question. How does Arjun realize in the battlefield that he should seek spiritual guidance from Krishna? How does he realize that Krishna would be that spiritual guru?
Because Arjun knew that Krishna is Bhagavan. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Arjun
Is
had
it
no
at the
doubt
end of
about
the
it. No, this is a misconception people have that happened at the end of Gita. He knew that he is Bhagavan. However, he had a relationship of that of a friend with him. So this is a higher position, even a higher position, because the very basic level of devotion is where you know that God is the supreme and you are his servant. So in that position, there is always awe and reverence. You know, you are not very free in that relationship. But the gopis and gopas of Vrindavan are on a higher position than these people, because despite knowing that Krishna is the supreme, their love and devotion and surrender to Krishna is so great that they develop a relationship with him. Any of these 5 rasas, either that of a friend or a parent or a lover, and which was the other one?
Dasya.
Servant. Servant we did that already, yeah.
First, Shant.
So
Shantras.
Shant is neutral.
Madhurya. Madhurya.
We did Madhurya, huh?
Yes.
Lover, I said. So that is when, and Krishna likes that. Krishna does not want us to be in awe and reverence of him all the time. Then we won't have a relationship, a loving relationship with him. He's Rasaraj. He is the king of relationships. He wants to have a relationship with us. He wants to enjoy love through a relationship with us. So Arjun had the relationship of a friend with him. Sakhya Ras. He had that with Krishna. So despite knowing that he is the Supreme Personality, that didn't bother him much, because he was enjoying the pastimes of a friend. The moment he realized, in fact, when Krishna tells him that he shows him the Vishwaroop, that's when he immediately realizes, oh, as a friend, I must have, misbehaved with you. We were lying on the same bed as friends and joking, and sometimes I snatched food from your plate. Oh my God, how could I do that? And then Krishna doesn't like that awe and reverence. He was like, I loved it when you were, treating me as your friend. So, yes, Arjun knew that Krishna is a spiritual master. He's highly intelligent. He's intellectual. He he is the knower of all the Vedas. Arjun knew that because Krishna displayed that during his lifetime, that nobody could defeat him in Vedas. Nobody could defeat him in knowledge of the Shastra. So he was the go-to person to learn about Shastra.
Okay.
That's why he asked him.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. So any realizations?
Vanita, I
Yes.
want to ask one thing.
Who is that?
Monica.
Oh, Monica Virmani?
हाँ जी.
अरे अच्छा, हाँ जी Monica, tell me.
मुझे ये समझ में आ गया कि when the results of pious activities are finished, one falls down again from the peak of happiness to the lowest status of life. So why to the lowest status of life?
You start because you have already exhausted all your credits of the human life. आपने human life को उतना ही utilize किया. आपने human life को इंद्रिय तृप्ति के लिए ही इस्तेमाल किया. आपने उसको कृपणा माइजर की तरह इस्तेमाल किया. तो इंद्रिय तृप्ति के लिए इस्तेमाल किया तो आपको इंद्रिय तृप्ति दे दी गई स्वर्गलोक में ले जाके. उसके बाद आपको दोबारा से कीड़े मकोड़ों से ही शुरू करना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि आपने मनुष्य जीवन का लाभ नहीं उठाया और मनुष्यों वाला कोई काम नहीं किया. आपने माइजरली वाला काम ही किया. You will start from scratch one.
Okay.
Had you used your life as a human being for the higher purpose of spiritual knowledge, looking for a spiritual master and making a solution to your problem of birth and death, then you would not have to start from scratch. Otherwise, too bad, you wasted the opportunity given to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's so important. It is so important. जो लोग कहते हैं कि अभी हमारी क्या उम्र है, बाद में कर लेंगे, या हो सकता है ना करें, अच्छा लगेगा तो करेंगे, नहीं तो नहीं करेंगे. Well, good luck. Yes, Meena.
मुझे पूछना था कि जैसे ये सेम ही जो है कि अगर हमारी पायस एक्टिविटीज खत्म हो जाएगी तो हम वापस आ जाएंगे, है ना, धरती पे वापस आ जाएंगे. लेकिन अगर एनिहिलेशन हो जाता है, सब कुछ युग बदल जाता है, स्वर्ग लोक भी खत्म हो जाता है, मृत्यु लोक भी खत्म हो जाता है, क्या हम गोलोक चले जाएंगे या यहीं पे होंगे, फिर अगले युग में जाएंगे?
Why will you go to Golok if you do not have the spiritual credit for that? You will go to Golok
जब
only
पूरा
when you
युग ही खत्म,
qualify.
सब कुछ खत्म हो गया, स्वर्ग लोक भी खत्म हो गया, सारे लोग खत्म हो गए, ऊपर के नीचे के सब प्रलय आ गई, कुछ भी नहीं बचा और नेक्स्ट युग शुरू होगा, तब क्या होगा? हम यहीं से शुरू करेंगे या कुछ अलग होगा?
ना, आप नेक्स्ट युग से ही शुरू करेंगे. Wherever, whatever. This is you will start from your material life only, regardless of which yuga it is, which planet it is. Everything does not get destroyed together. It may not. That's an ideal state कि सभी गोलोक धाम चले गए. Everybody took their spiritual life seriously and everybody went back. I wish that was true. In that case, it becomes 0-0. There's nobody left. Of course, जो संत महात्मा हैं, उनकी प्रेयर तो यही होती है कि सभी डिलीवर हो जाएं, सब चले जाएं. सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः. ये एक वैष्णव के हार्ट की कंपैशन है और एक वैष्णव के हार्ट की प्रेयर तो यही है कि सब चले जाएं. बट यू एंड मी आर हियर, आरंट वी? हम सतयुग से आ रहे हैं. अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली थी हमें सतयुग में, हम नहीं गए. त्रेता में भी हम नहीं गए, द्वापर में भी हम नहीं गए, अब कलयुग में आ गए. Isn't it? So if you have not taken your spiritual life seriously, regardless of what happens, you will still remain somewhere. You cannot go back. You will remain in the material world only, in some form or the other. Material world प्रलय के बाद भी खत्म थोड़ी होता है, अगला युग फिर से शुरू हो जाता है ना material world का.
वो तो फिर द्वारा से बनता है ना, जैसे उसमें बोलते हैं ब्रह्मा जी का एक दिन है वो खत्म हो गया, सब फिर नेक्स्ट शुरू होगा।
But you're still in
रहेंगे उस
but you're still in the material world. You're not in the spiritual world. Your question is, oh, by the time my time in Swarg finishes, everything here is destroyed, so automatically I go to Golok. This is the main crux of your question, isn't it? Well, no, you don't get promoted unless you have the qualification. You will be promoted to the spiritual world only if you have the qualification. Regardless of...
अच्छा, पहले पॉपुलेशन बहुत कम थी और अब पॉपुलेशन बढ़ती जा रही है, तो हम कहते हैं कि आत्मा न कटती है, न मरती है, न बढ़ती है, तो फिर ये पॉपुलेशन कैसे बढ़ रही है?
So we have
क्या
answered
ऊपर
this.
से और आत्माएं आ रही है?
Yes, there are people falling. Gandharvas are falling from the heavenly planets also all the time. Haven't you seen child prodigies being born? पैदा होते ही म्यूजिक कंपोज कर रहे हैं ऑफ द हाईएस्ट लेवल, पंडित जसराज के लेवल का, बीथोवन, मोजार्ट, ये सब चाइल्ड प्रोडिजीज थे। पैदा होते ही इतनी एडवांस्ड लेवल ऑफ म्यूजिक को कंपोज करने लग गए थे। दे कुड हैव बीन गंधर्वास who fell from the, because Gandharvas are very advanced, and so planets से अदला बदली होती रहती है। There are 14 planetary systems in the material world. Souls keep traveling from one planet to the other. नीचे के planet से ऊपर आ रहे हैं, ऊपर के planet से नीचे जा रहे हैं। Everybody is busy traveling. Travel चलता रहता है. Travel doesn't stop.
कौन देता?
Ishita was asking something. Ishita, I saw you raise your hand.
She's not here now.
Oh, all right. I saw
Me, Preeti.
हाँ जी प्रीति।
अभी जैसे मीना ने कहा कि आपने बताया कि गंधर्व हैं, ये ऊपर नीचे ऊपर जाते आते रहते हैं, है ना? तो फिर जब ये इतने हाईली क्वालिफाइड हैं, इतने भगवान के उसमें है, जब ये ऊपर नीचे आते आते हैं, तो क्या कब हम सोचे कि हम भगवान के उसमें जा सकते हैं, प्लेनेट में गोहर जा सकते हैं हम?
भक्त बन के, केवल भक्त बन के ही आप यहाँ से निकल सकते हैं।
तो
देवी देवता बनकर
ये जो आपने बताया गंधर्व, ये सब भक्त नहीं है?
नहीं, ये सब इंद्रिय तृप्ति भोग विलासी हैं। ये इंद्र इज नॉट अ भक्त, भक्त होगा बट ही इज अ भोग विलासी ऑफ द हाईएस्ट ऑर्डर। ही लव्स टू बी विद अप्सरास। तो जब आप भोग विलास की चरम सीमा में पहुंच जाते हो, लेकिन आपने पायस एक्टिविटीज की हैं, तो आप स्वर्ग लोग जाते हैं। बट दे आर नॉट भक्तास। Only a devotee will be promoted, the heart of a devotee. And that's why devotees reject Swarglok. That's not a good place to go to anyways, because वहां जाकर आप भक्ति भूल जाओगे, भोग विलास में पड़े रहोगे। They are not advanced beings.
मतलब जो अप्सराएं हैं, ये सब मटेरियल वर्ल्ड में टॉप लेवल पे हैं। They are not
Yes.
भक्त। अगर
No.
भक्ति करेंगे तो ही कृष्ण के साथ मिलेगा हमको।
Yes.
अच्छा, ठीक है, समझ आ गया आज ये बात तो।
Yes. This is just like saying अमेरिका में सब बहुत रिच हैं, तो वो सब तो ऑटोमेटिकली मरने के बाद स्वर्ग चले जाएंगे। हम तो पुअर कंट्री में पड़े हैं बेचारे, तो गरीब हैं, हमारी तो कंट्री भी डेवलप नहीं है, तो हम लोग तो मरने के बाद नहीं जाएंगे, लेकिन वो लोग चले जाएंगे। तो why? Just because they are rich or in a more advanced state enjoying more advanced enjoyment? That's not a qualification.
संत कबीर हुए हैं, सूरदास जी हैं, ये तो भक्तों की गिनती में आते हैं।
Of course.
अच्छा, ठीक है, थैंक यू।
So let's chant our closing prayers. Who shall I ask to repeat after me? श्वेता, आप बोलेंगे?
Yeah.
Okay. एकम शास्त्रम
एकं शास्त्रं
देवकी पुत्र गीतम
देवकी पुत्र गीतम्
एको देवो
एको देवो
देवकी पुत्र एव
देवकी पुत्र एव
एको मंत्रस
एको मन्त्रस्
तस्य नामानि यानि
तस्य नामानि यानि
कर्मापि एकं
कर्मापि एकं
तस्य देवस्य सेवा
तस्य देवस्य सेवा
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव
त्वमेव बन्धु च सखा त्वमेव
त्वमेव बन्धु च सखा त्वमेव
त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव
त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव
त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव
त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
हरये परमात्मने
परमये परमात्मने
हरये
हरये
परमात्मने
हरये परमात्मने
प्रणतकलेश
प्रणतकलेश
नाशाय
नाशाय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय
देवकी नन्दनाय च
देवकीनन्दनाय च
नन्दगोप
नन्दगोप
कुमाराय
कुमाराय
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
गोविन्दाय नमो नमः
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं
वसुदेवं सुतं देवं
कंसचाणूरमर्दनं
कंसचाणूरमर्दनं
देवकी परमानन्दं
देवकी परमानन्दं
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं
कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं
कात्यायनी महामाये
कात्यायनी महामाय
महायोगिनी अधीश्वरी
महायोगिनी अधीश्वरी
नन्दगोपसुतं देवी
नन्दगोपसुतं देवी
पतिं मे कुरुते नमः
पतं मे कुरुते नमः
श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम
श्रीकृष्ण शरणं मम
दासोऽहं कृष्ण तवास्मि
दासोऽहं कृष्ण तवास्मि
हरे कृष्ण कृष्ण कृष्ण
हरे
कृष्ण हरे
कृष्ण
हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय
जय, श्रीमद् भगवद गीता की
जय
जय, ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की
जय
सभी उपस्थित भक्तों की
जय
जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि
हरे
हरि बोल।
हमारी
जय
टीचर
जय
की
श्री
जय
राधे
राधे
कृष्णा।
हमारे टीचर की जय जो हमें से
So
बताते हैं
everybody,
समझाते हैं। थैंक यू सो मच, थैंक यू सो मच।
you're welcome. Please chant the names of Hari, the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra until the next class, and please read these purports, all the verses that we have done till now until 2.8. I'll have a quiz next class and I will choose who has to answer. So everybody should revise and come.